Hello, beloveds. Welcome to the Amanda Collins podcast. It's my honor to help you awaken to joy, be your greatest self, and live a life you love. I'm Amanda Collins. Each week, I'll share tips, practices, and rituals to help you feel the storehouse of joy inside. I'll answer your questions and talk with thought leaders from around the world about health, wealth, love, conscious living, and parenting. Are you ready to live your most fulfilled life? Welcome to episode 45 with Jay Brave. In this episode, you'll learn about how to find your voice, speak your truth, overcome pain, release shame and guilt, how service can heal you, and awaken to your own divine love. Jay Brave is an artist in action who uses music as a vehicle of service. This former counselor for homeless and at-risk youth turned MC and DJ is on a mission to break walls and build bridges to bring people together. He is the founder of the internationally renowned hip-hop collective The Luminaries and has toured the world spreading messages of peace, love, and unity throughout his travels. His debut solo album, Amethyst, has piqued the ears of global listeners, and the single Sacred has gone viral, approaching 1 million video views on Facebook. This multi-talented artist fuses conscious rap and singing lyrics with hard-hitting beats to inspire and empower audiences. His live shows can also expand to feature instrumentalists, singers, and dancers to accompany him on stage during his heartfelt performances. He is currently on the production team and a resident DJ for Ecstatic Dance in Los Angeles, and a selector seamlessly blends genres while captivating dancers with his diverse soundscape of movement medicine. He strives to use music as a means to express his personal transformation while sharing his story of resiliency through adversity. He's an avid speaker and leads workshops and coaching sessions under the theme Discover Your Sacred Offerings. Jay Brave is passionate about uplifting the masses, speaking against injustices, and rekindling our connection to nature so we may live a more loving world. Well, I am so delighted to have Jay Brave with us here today. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. So grateful to be on the show with you today.
Well, I would love to just dive straight in. You are an incredible musician and light worker. And will you tell us briefly a little bit about your story? How did you find music, or did it find you? And how is it such a powerful tool of transformation?
Yeah, well, my story began in Inglewood, California, where I was born. I'm one of 10 kids. My mother had 7 of them. And I grew up in a really challenging situation because in the mid 80s, my older brothers, I was the second youngest. My older brothers were gang banging and selling drugs and breakdancing. And my house kind of became the haven for young people in the neighborhood to get together and party. And my father wasn't home because my mother and father split up. And my mother was working a midnight shift. So very, very slowly, or quickly rather, the house became just a place for people to come and party. And I grew up in a really tough environment, to the point in which my house got raided by the police when I was really young age. I experienced a lot of trauma and violence. And my father eventually passed away when I was 11 years old. And my mother started drinking heavily. My brother started using heroin in the house. And I was kind of growing up in a dysfunctional space. And so all the resentment and pain and anger and judgment and blame that I held throughout middle school and high school carried with me. Also the identity issues of being a mixed cultured person and fully not knowing who I am, also was a part of my shame that I had to release. But all the things that I endured as a young person were ultimately things that I overcame as an adult. So a lot of my story is about overcoming the hardships, the challenges, the pain, and coming to a space of unconditional love, surrender, service, and compassion,
Well, that is amazing that you just chose to just totally transform your life. And, and release the shame. I think that's huge. Thank you for bringing that up. And I feel this is something that so many people want to release, whatever the experiences that they've had. And so, would you share some tools with how you did that?
Absolutely. A big facet of my growth and expansion actually started with when I was working with homeless and at-risk youth in my early 20s in Hollywood. As you may know, LA has a huge homeless population because of the weather and the allure of Hollywood. So a lot of people, especially young people, come to Los Angeles when they're have no homes. And I was working with a population between 14 and 24, young people that were in gangs, in and out of jails, young boys and young girls that were prostituting in and out of shelters, living in abandoned buildings, like really the most terrifying and tough stories you could imagine. I was working with those people every single day, providing resources, food, shelter, referrals, all these different things that support them and help them on their path, sometimes even job referrals. And, I've seen people die and get killed and hurt, even coworkers and young people alike. And in that process of learning the power of service, the power of stepping into a role where I'm working with people that are going through such difficult situations, the universe just provided like a spiritual boot camp for me to attune my spiritual principles and tools, heal all the things I mentioned before in myself that I resonated on a deeper level with the kids. Because I could have been a homeless youth, but I didn't take that route because of my story. But I was healing a lot of my own story through their stories and sharing. And I feel the power of service really brought me to a space of learning the true essence of non-attachment, unconditional love. And that's where a lot of my journey began there.
So that's amazing. So basically, when on some level your past was being mirrored to you, it kind of brought it up to the surface to kind of clear and heal.
Absolutely. Yeah. And in that same period, I was really focusing on music. I've been writing music since I was about 15 years old, poetry and songs. But for a long time, I just shared it very privately. A lot of it stemmed from the healing of my father passing away, kind of having an outlet I can express myself. And, during that process, working with the young people, was starting to cultivate those gifts and connect with other musicians and creative artists. So I moved to Venice back in about 2003. And when I moved to Venice Beach, which is, kind of like the whole California dream all comes together there, especially in LA, such a diverse neighborhood of counterculture, creativity, spiritual people. It's by the water. I started exploring veganism, yoga, meditation, met a lot of my creative allies, formulated my group, the Luminaries, which is my hip hop ensemble, and really started to express all the things that I was going through in my story, in my path, started to come out through my music, and more healing began for myself. And now I'm a solo artist with my Jay Brave project, DJing, life coaching, but I'm also doing monthly events in the LA area now. So I can see the correlation of how everything happened to me as a kid and the overcoming of all those challenges and difficulties just led to greater realms of my expression and service now.
That's so amazing that you just kind of like harnessed those experiences and didn't allow them to make you bitter or, resentful. And as you said, you experienced that for a while and then you just harness that energy for transformation. And, they say that, and I love all these incredible offerings that you have. And, they say some of the top scariest things in the world is like public speaking. But I feel that like singing and, sharing your heart and soul through your music and your writing kind of goes way beyond that. How did you find a way to like find your voice and speak your truth and share your story? Like, how were you able to make that, like, to be able to just speak your truth in that way?
Yeah, Carl Jung, the famous philosopher, says the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And that lesson really came to me in a really powerful way when I went to Vipassana. And Vipassana is a 10-day silent meditation course offered all over the world where you basically turn in your identity, your money, your phone, no social media, no reading, no writing, no music. It's all about literally being out in nature and focusing on your meditation practice for the duration of 10 days without talking. And when I went there for the first time in 2006, I just had a massive awakening of myself, a massive lesson of my own acceptance. I experienced the vibration of non-attachment, not just on an intellectual level, but actually experiencing letting go of my thoughts and emotions and just being still and present and finding acceptance in my physical moment, my emotional moment, and of course, my life path. And I literally look at my spiritual journey as before Vipassana and after Vipassana, because that's such a strong impact on me. And learning to accept myself, like accepting my story, accepting all those difficulties and shame and blame and challenges, and just been like, wow, I've created this all. I've had these external circumstances that have triggered these things in me, but I chose to be in this body. I chose this family. I chose this experience, and I accept it all, and I can shift it all. And it's from that space of empowerment where I no longer became a victim, and I realized that I can transmute the difficulties into my music. And I like to say, what was once our shame can now be the platform from which we stand upon. You see? So what once brought me shame in my life, and I was scared to talk about, is now the platform and the pillar that I can stand upon and share my story. And I think for all of us that are looking to find our voice, whether that's through music or any form of creative modality, it's about being okay with our story. It's about, I can paint that version of my life. I can write that story about that. I can dance that out. Or even with you, sharing, connecting with other people through their stories and helping create a platform for them. It's all a part of the transmutation and the alchemy of our lives.
Yeah, and I love that, and I love that you shared that, during this time of transformation, you really found like solace and even your own transformation in being of service, so devotion. And I also want to touch upon something else you said, about fully accepting yourself, fully accepting your story and releasing the shame. And I just think this is so important, if we could just kind of hone in on it. But was there a time when you were moving from that into, I'm going to share my story, that you were scared that I'm going to be judged? I mean, can I really do this? What are people going to say to me? So did you have those experiences? If you did, how did you help yourself move to the other side?
Yeah, from day one, I remember the very first time I ever performed on a stage in my life. I was about 22 years old at an open mic. And I went up and I signed up like maybe toward the end because I was really scared to share. And by the time my name finally came up, I was sweating and I was really terrified to go on stage. I remember kind of choking up a little bit when I got on the mic, but eventually shared some poem or some rhymes. And I was sweating profusely, and I got off stage feeling like I'm never going to do that again. Like, that was terrible. Like, I should never even have tried that. Why did I even come here? That was stupid of me to even do. And that was what I was processing inside of me. And then as I'm walking back to the table I was sitting at, some man came up to me from nowhere that I didn't even know. And he grabbed me kind of forcefully and was like, brother, whatever you do, don't ever stop. That was amazing. Your words have power. Like, just don't ever quit. And it was like, looking back in retrospect, I was at first a little startled, but at the same time, because of my lack of male role models in my life as a kid, it was almost like my spirit needed a strong man to give me that strong encouragement, And it was like an angel in disguise. I don't know who this person was, and maybe I'll never meet him again, but I never forgot that mantra, just don't ever stop. And I just kept going throughout the process, even though stuff would come up in my life, having fear, doubt, low self-esteem, I just kept going. And as I learned to infuse the power of service, I feel like when we really can embody the vibration of service, it eliminates all facets of our ego. Because ego isn't just, look at me, I'm the best in the world at what I do. Ego can also be, I'm not good enough. Who am I to be on that stage? It's also like that self-doubt. It's basically the same vibration on different sides of the coin, but it's the same coin. But when we embody service, I feel, we get to really let go of both polarities of the ego, and we're doing it for the greater good. Like, I have to offer my gift because this is my contribution to the world. I was bestowed these talents, and I must do this as my duty. So I feel service really helped me cut through the ego and step out of all those vibrations that were trying to hold me down, and just be in a place where I can offer these gifts with love.
So beautiful. And when you were sharing, when you got off that stage and you were like, I'm never doing this again. And then this man, like your angel, like as you were to so many, like held you and said that. I welled up in tears, and I just got chills. I call them God bumps. And that was amazing. And so, and it really feels that from the experiences that you had, and probably experience that you still have, like you have received strength, like this unbelievable strength and this unbelievable passion to want to make a difference in this world.
Absolutely. I literally do my best to wake up every day, look myself in the mirror, come to that place of acceptance and love, not in vanity, but in a place of like, wow, you are beautiful. You are love, and you are here to serve a great mission. And remind myself of why I'm on the planet and not to take for granted this day. I'm grateful that I get the privilege of being in America. Just even the poor people here have it better than some people in many countries. And not to compare other people's destinies and stories, but just to have a place of gratitude and appreciation is so important for me. And to come to that place where I remind myself of why am I here? Why have I risen again on this planet to offer what? So I always do my best to remind myself of that mantra every morning and realize I'm here to be in service through my gifts, through my expression, through my events, through my music, through my coaching services, and just be the change I wish to see in the world,
And I completely agree. And I know that there's so many beloveds listening to you speak these words right now, and they're thinking, but I need to find my voice. Like I need to find my truth. I want to be able to speak I want to be able to share it with the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like for those that are just feeling like, how would I ever do that? Like what words of wisdom have you got to share with them?
Yeah, I really feel that each and every one of us alive on the planet right now is here to express something profound and unique that only we can share. Like literally, we've all come here on the planet right now in our physical form because there's some gift that we have to offer. And I think that the way that I perceive my philosophy when I do my Discover Your Sacred Offering teachings is that we're all here to awaken to our divine love, come into alignment with our unique talents and gifts and offerings, and be in service. So when we can get that holy trinity of understanding and be like, wow, I came here to offer this music or this dance or this yoga or this culinary arts or to write this book or to create this amazing architecture. There's so many ways that we can express, and that's what makes us unique. I feel like we're all here just to awaken to our divine love as our collective purpose. But what makes us unique is our talents and gifts. And of course, society, our parents, like people can sway us away from things that bring us that great joy. But our barometer of joy is like the inner guidance of what we're here to share. So when we follow our joy, let's say it's yoga, like I just love yoga. I mean, I've worked with people that work in the corporate world to make a lot of money, but their greatest joy might be doing yoga. It's not to say that they have to switch their career paths to become a yoga instructor, but maybe it's about infusing that great joy in their lives. Maybe that yoga brings them holistic pleasure. Maybe it gives them more spiritual insight. Maybe that sangha and community within the yoga community helps keep them sane and balanced so they can work in their corporate job. So it's about attuning to what brings you that joy and being in service with your gift and amplifying that in the best way so we can touch as many people that are going through difficulties in life.
I love that. And, awakening to divine love, like I feel that we're born innately knowing that we are true source energy and we are pure love. And there are experiences that, whether it's family or society, that take us away from knowing that we are this vessel of pure divine love. And it's like, then we spend the rest of our lives, trying to come back into alignment, true alignment with that, and following our joy. And you clearly have done so much work and completely realigning with this. What are some ways that you suggest that to all our listeners that can just dive deeper into their own self-love?
Yeah, I think one of the early steps for me is letting go of that concept and idea of good and bad and right and wrong. Just completely abolishing those, sometimes even from our vocabulary. Of course, sometimes those words still slip in. But I mean, the concept of how we perceive things, if we stop looking at them as good and bad and right and wrong, I think it's such a powerful step toward our own inner awakening because there's so much judgment affiliated and energetic judgment toward those words. Some indigenous cultures don't even have those words in their vocabulary. Like there's not even a definition for good or bad or right or wrong. That was kind of created and imbued upon us. I try to look at things more, we live in this three-dimensional world. Earth is a three-dimensional realm. There's physical reality here, and duality does exist. And even in duality, like not looking at things in right or wrong or good and bad, it's just like the polarity of all, like there's a polarity to everything in life. So I do my best to look at things as either in alignment or out of alignment. That's it. There's no label or judgment on them. Or you can say, I look at things complete or incomplete, like a binary digit, ones and zero. So we can start to practice that philosophy. I've felt great shifts in my life when I stopped perceiving something or someone as good and bad or right or wrong. Because anytime we point the finger, they say it points right back to us. So if I'm making something good or bad or right and wrong, because we're all one, I'm ultimately making myself good or bad or right or wrong. So I just rather look at things as in alignment or out of alignment. And even though some things can be out of alignment, like we might find a lesson because we're perceiving our lens from being out of focus per se. And then it allows us to come back to in focus. So just like in life, there's going to be ups and downs. And it's more about coming back to that acceptance that it's totally okay to feel sadness or grief or anger, and just observe it. Like in meditation, we can observe our emotions, we can learn from them. And I feel they're all trying to bring us lessons that we're actually calling forth. But if we label them and judge them and make them good or bad, then we might miss the blessing in disguise that we're actually calling forth for ourselves. Like we actually learn so much through our challenges and our adversity, but it's when we start to label them as good or bad or right or wrong that we misperceive the lesson that we're actually trying to bring forth to ourselves from the higher plane.
Absolutely. I love that. It's like if we could take those out of the dictionary, good or bad, it's just, does this feel in alignment or not? I love the story. Have you heard the story about the man with the horse, or that wanted the horse? It's like,
please share. Yeah.
Well, really briefly, but there was a young boy who really wanted a horse, and the family couldn't afford it, and the whole village was like, oh, I'm so sorry, it's so bad. They were like, well, we'll see. And then a month later he wins the horse, and they were like, oh, it's so good. It's like, we'll see. And then a month later he falls off the horse and breaks both his legs. Oh, it's so bad. Oh, we'll see. And then a month later he's called to be in the army, and he can't because he's broken legs. Oh, it's so good, we'll see. And it just really is, it's just that living without attachment to things, and just being present with what is, receive the teachings. And I love that you said, allow yourself to move through the sadness or whatever the feelings and the emotions is, because I think as important as it is to be in gratitude and to keep our vibration high and to use conscious languaging, it's also so important that we allow ourselves to move through grief or sadness or whatever needs to come up at this time. And I would love to ask you, what are some tools, because clearly your vibration, you just exude joy and gratitude. So and you've mentioned being vegan, yoga, meditation. What are some other tools though that you use in order to keep, I suppose, yourself just in alignment and in balance?
Yeah, I mean, even this moment now, I'm just processing what we go through is so powerful. Like, to be present is such a key. I'm always doing my best to remind myself and others to remain present to what is. Like, that gift of life, even waking up in gratitude is such a high level of presence, because we can just wake up and get in our computers and start doing things. But just the moment of acknowledging the divine, acknowledging great spirit, and giving that love and essence to the gratitude is such a powerful gift. And I literally do my best to process every day what I go through with myself, with others, and like look for the signs, like look for the omens, look for the lessons and the blessings in disguise. Because like I was sharing previously, I truly feel we're always casting out intentions and prayers, and the universe is always giving us the answers, but we often miss them just because we're not present. We're like growing so fast. And if we just allow a moment of cognizance, like, wait a minute, like that happened to me, my car broke down. Like, what's the lesson there? Like, what's the blessing in disguise? Like, what can I learn from this experience? Just having that level of mindfulness throughout every experience is so powerful. And I've just found so many rewards from having that level of presence. And it just takes a little bit of mindfulness to practice that throughout our day. So that comes to mind.
Absolutely, just allowing that process and being present with that process, not numbing it with whatever alcohol or drugs or food or whatever the modality is, social media, who knows, and just allowing yourself to be in it, to experience it. And I love that you said, whatever the experiences are, whether just in your own life or within relationships, you process. So I would love to hear, what does that look like if you have something that feels out of alignment in a relationship, friendship, or wherever it may be? How do you process that with them? Like, what are some tools for that?
Yeah, it's just about tuning into what we know. Like, I feel like I've come to a place where I've learned certain principles and I have to just remind myself to apply them. Like, for instance, the superhero like Batman. There's a really good analogy I like to use because a lot of people understand Batman. Like, when Batman is not Batman, he's Bruce Wayne, the billionaire with a lot of money that goes out to events and like has a social life. But he becomes Batman when the challenge comes, when the Joker comes or the villain comes. He puts on the suit, and then he has a utility belt with all these different tools that he can utilize based upon what's happening, you see? So it's like the utility belt that Batman has is kind of like our spiritual principles, like our compassion, our love, our forgiveness, our presence, our surrender. All those things are different forms of tools that we can utilize in any given situation. And it's our awareness that activates them. Like, all these principles are activated through our awareness of of the ways they work. And depending on the certain challenge or circumstance, I can pull out any of my certain spiritual principles. So it's just about like having that mindfulness that, okay, there's a challenge. Let me come into acceptance of what is. And keep in mind, like, I think it's really important for people to realize that acceptance is not condonement. We often misconstrue those two things in our inner working, in our guidance system. For instance, like Donald Trump is the president of America. I can accept that that's what is, and I can't change that now because that's what is. But it doesn't mean that I condone what he says or who he is or the way that he chooses to act. You feel me? So I can come to acceptance from that space of what is, and then operate from the what is, and then pull out any of my certain spiritual principles. And again, I think that we're often given the answers to everything we're asking for. It's about slowing down, breathing, and being present to what's coming our way. And especially the challenges bring forth so many answers for us. But it's our inability to just be present with them and like see what way that I can respond, and also what lesson that's bringing me. Like you're saying in relationship, it's very common that people will attract this certain type of people over and over in intimate or business or creative relationships. And then we wonder, it's like, why do I keep attracting this type of woman in my life? Well, it's like the universe is trying to show you, give you a challenge that you have to overcome. That's about maybe a karmic healing or something within us that must be alleviated. And it's about us, how we can approach that and how we can look at it in a way that we're going to overcome it and find the lesson and the blessing, so we can move to the next tier of our relationships, per se.
Absolutely. I love that. Okay, so I've got a couple of last questions. And what are 3 top sharings in this moment because you mentioned joy and following our joy. What are 3 best kind of practices or tips to invite people to just step into their joy?
Wow. Well, I think it's about being silent, like finding that moment of really tuning into your heart space and asking oneself, like, what brings me that deepest level of joy in life? And just seeing what comes up, what activity or form of expression resonates. It could be something even as a little kid. I mean, I've worked with people that were just like, I just love working in the garden. I don't know. And ever since I was a kid, I love being with my grandmother, pulling out vegetables and putting my hand in the soil. And for some of us, because the way that we're programmed, that activity could seem like, well, that's not what I'm here to do. Like I have to make money. I got to pay rent. But there's just so many things in the form of gardening that can bring forth abundance and or opportunities, like, making a company around gardening tools, or like creating a farm, or living on a co-op in Hawaii, or growing vegetables or crops, or working with plant medicines, or so forth and so on. Like, it's about exploring the great gamut of things that bring one that joy. and finding what attunes to some form of expression that we can be in service to. So to me, that resonates really strongly. And again, just building a daily level of gratitude and appreciation. I think looking oneself in the mirror, in the eyes for 5 minutes and doing affirmations and reclaiming our divinity and our truth and our self-love is such a profound act. And society will tell you that's vain. Oh, that's vain to look in the mirror. But it's not coming from that space. It's coming from a space of just appreciating and giving yourself that love, versus oftentimes people are looking for that love and validation outside of themselves, versus just giving themselves that as part of the whole. So that's a really powerful tool. And then just being mindful of, what we're putting in our body in all facets. I don't believe in any dogma about any specific diet. I think the best diet is a non-judgmental diet. I've been vegan for 15 years, but I've connected with some people that are vegan that can come off so judgmental to others that are not. And for 20 years of my life, I didn't eat vegan food. So it's like I had to get to a place of learning the ways in which I can apply that for myself, because we just never know where people are at. But I do think, regardless of whatever people choose, our intake of what we're putting in our body not only contributes to ourselves and our cells for our whole holistic being, but it also, we're contributing to certain companies. We're affiliating ourselves with our money and a way we choose to spend that. And we're also supporting different facets of our environment, depending on what we consume and all facets, even the plastic around packaging. So those three things come to mind as being really powerful tools for joy and cultivating that.
Oh my gosh, so beautiful. And my last question is, how may all of us be of service to you?
Indeed. Yeah. I mean, I'm here to be in service, and the way that I express my service is through my music. I'm putting out my album that I have out is called Amethyst. I have a lot of beautiful music with my group Luminaries. We have a one album. I'm putting out a new record called Gifts. I offer one-on-one coaching under the theme Discover Your Sacred Offering. I'm currently building a festival brand called Benevolence, which is a really powerful vision to create music and holistic arts and movement and also service projects. And I'm also coordinating a trip to Peru called Initiation with my friend Xochitl Shea, a phenomenal teacher herself from Peru. And we're co-leading that experience October 8th through 17th this year. So check out jbrave.net for more information about all these things, as well as my Instagram account. Just look up letter J, then Brave. I'll pop right up. And I would love to share more about everything I'm doing. If you feel resonant to what I'm offering and sharing with my words, please reach out to me. I'd love to connect with you. I love helping people on their path. I'm really here to be a vessel of service through my gifts and help others awaken and to come into their full expression and empowerment. So if anyone hears me out there, please reach out. I'd love to connect.
Oh my gosh, so many incredible offerings, and the Journey Peru sounds amazing, your new album, and just this dance and music, sacred dance and music, that sounds incredible. And we will be sure to have all the links in the show notes to all these incredible, delicious offerings that you shared. And I just want to say thank you for sharing your love and your time and your wisdom with us.
Hey, peace and blessings to all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, I'd love to hear from you. What are your daily practices to stay in alignment and keep your vibration high? Let me know your answers in the comments below. Do your best to share as much detail as possible. Your story may be just what someone else needs to have their breakthrough.
Thanks, beloveds, for joining us today. Please come over to themandacons.com to continue the conversation and get access to all my podcasts, blogs, and videos. Did you enjoy this podcast? If so, please subscribe to the Amanda Cons podcast on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. Feel free to pass this podcast on to your friends. That helps us get incredible guests to share their secrets for an inspired and joyful life. If you want more great resources, come over to amandacons.com and join my mailing list for all my latest content. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, I'm sending love and joy your way.